Go through it.
Oh, okay, go
Let's
ahead.
get
You
it
better
started.
swing that
Hey,
thing
get
to
it
the
started,
side.
girl. Because I can't do it. I don't have the right chemicals in it right now. I need the chemicals to make it lay down. So go ahead and do it.
We're doing it. We are definitely live while you getting your bang together.
We're
I
live
mean,
now?
we're
No, we're not live. No, we're not. You're not live yet. I didn't see the broadcast live yet.
definitely live, honey. So,
Really? You don't watch us?
honey,
Shenanigans.
listen, it's Monday. Look, we both got our little swoops together. I said, D'Angelo, can you tell I got my hair rebraided? He gonna say yes because your edges. I said, oh, I didn't know if that was shade or if it was the
No,
forehead or
it's when you get your hair tight redone, it's tight and it's fresh and everything is pulled back. Like I haven't had mine redone in a month, so you can when I get it redone, you be like, "Woo!"
so is it giving like instant facelift? Is it like
And it takes some of that weight off of it takes some of that weight off you because I'm saying not weight, is in your hair weight because of forget it.
that is one of the beautiful things about being a black woman, and I'm sure a black man with longer hair as well, is that we can show up as whoever we want to show up as. I can be Blair today, I can be Gerara tomorrow, I can be Miss Hervey on Friday. If I give you just a little swoop, little bang, pop my edges, I'm somebody new. I feel
And
good.
I think in the future we're gonna book a stylist on the show to talk about black hair at work because you know what the question is that I don't like when people ask is like, what is the hairstyle you have today? Your hair was different yesterday. Okay, thank you very much. Just go with it. Is this all? This is your? But it was short. It's long. Okay, it's okay. All right.
It's fine. It's fine
Yeah,
because I've got inches today.
right.
Last week I had feet, honey. We
Right.
just got inches today. We
Yeah.
had feet last
Uh-huh.
week. But yes, the questions do come up. As long as you don't touch it, then we're okay.
Oh, I got a story about somebody touched my hair once before, and I was in my early 20s, and I was like, I need this good job, and I didn't know how to respond to her because I was a host, and that lady came in right into my head, and she went, "Is your hair real?" And she proceeded just to put and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was like I said, I was young, I was in my 20s. Now that I'm in my 40s, baby, I would just walk.
You got to do one of these.
And I would swap her hand back and be like, "Do you not?" And we would have a whole lesson. Don't touch nobody. Do you want somebody to touch your coif,
Do
your
not
bouffant?
touch exactly. Ooh, I love how you brought up that bouffant because I sent you a throwback picture last night. That's a whole nother conversation. But you know what? I love, 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 of course, interacting with you. Now I get to do it every single day, even though you're all the way in DC and most days I'm all the way in Portland, Oregon. But it's a great opportunity for us to connect and for us to connect with every beautiful body out there. So hello, everyone. For anyone who is not familiar, my name is Blair G. Hervey. I am the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. I'm joined by my colorful co-host, bestie, soul friend of 20 plus years, D'Angelo Crane. Hi, D.
Hi, always glad to be here with you, and so excited about week 3 of the Black DEIBA Collective. I mean, the only thing I think I do every day is take a bath. So you got me blended. Actually, working with you the consist. I don't do anything consistently. Okay, but yes, but it's yes, definitely see you every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time on LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live, and now you can find us on the YouTube if you need to. Thank you, the Black
Yeah,
DEIBA Collective.
that was a cute little shout out. You're absolutely right. I mean, we're both Sagittarius, so shout out to all the Sagittarius in the building. If y'all know anything about Sagittarius, as you can see, we're very optimistic. We're very boisterous. We like to explore, finding the meaning of life. But when we see a squirrel, it's over there. So it's really important for us to find things that we latch onto, that we find both passion and purpose in, and that, of course, to overcome some of our procrastination, that's already innate in us, to do something consistently. We also want to make sure that we're just there for you all. We know that we are filling a void. We have gotten so many accolades, props, high fives, hugs, and love from so many people out in the audience. We appreciate you watching us live. We appreciate you watching us on the replay, again on YouTube. This is the Black DEIBA Collective, and we are here to create that space for you all. And I'm glad we can do it every single day. I feel like we've already answered this question, Dee, but please pass it. I'm passing it to you for the next part of our little segment. What's the first
Oh,
part that we always
definitely.
do?
We do the art of the check-in. But before we do that, can I do a plug? If anyone out there is watching right now, and you would like to pick our show up as a podcast or a show on your network or on your app, we're definitely available for that as well. Thank you. Okay, now back to the art of the check-in.
Yes,
I have to, I have to
available,
put it out there. Every show, I'm gonna start just throwing those plugs out there, okay? But
as you should.
the art of the check-in is what we do every day to check in, to go a little deeper on how are we feeling, how are we doing, how are we living. And so we're going to do that because we're asking leaders to do that each and every day with you. And I like to ask the question, instead of how are you doing today or how was your day, is how are you feeling today? So Blair, how's your soul, how's your heart, how's your mind feeling today?
Oh, I don't know. I've never had anyone ask me how's my soul. A quick soul check-in from my soul friend. I'm absolutely fantastic. Probably because I got a million hours of sleep, which I'm one of those people, not that I don't believe in sleep, but sleep is never a priority for me. She naps enough to shut the body down for a little bit, and then I get back to it, usually on the couch, keep it moving. Last night, my phone went dead. So D'Angelo did not get the usual texts and emails that he would usually get because I was out of it. I took a Benadryl after fooling with a dog. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm allergic. And so I was asleep. I had a restful slumber, woke up, got to it. So I'm full of energy on coffee number two. I'm feeling great. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm good. I'm glad that you got some sleep and you're getting some balance in because as an entrepreneur, honey, y'all, she works 18 hours a day. Okay. I'd be like, why are you texting me at this time in the morning? Go to bed. But I'm not even answering this. Okay. I'm trying to have me time, boo time, bay time, and you over there working time. But when you love something, you're passionate about anything, then you definitely put in the work to make it be successful when she does that. As far as me, I'm feeling, I'm good today. It is just normal. It's really, really busy in my life right now. However, I'm feeling productive and I'm feeling healthy, safe, and sound. So that's what matters.
I love that. So you said that you're really busy these days. What's keeping you busy?
Ooh, a little bit of everything. So, I mean, I think working in the field, and we're going to talk about this later, working in the field of what we do, working in diversity currently right now in my role, I think our work is ever evolving and there's ever new challenges and there's ever new things we're helping organizations to move and transition and transform. And so that is not work that's for the kind of, I mean, it's sometimes brutal work, but it's important work, right? I think I came into the jobs that we do, many of people do each and every day, right? Is it's you love what you do, you want to be there. However, you also know there are those days when you get really tired, right? And you get really like, oh my goodness. So I'm experiencing all of those emotions all at one time. So busy with that, and yeah, that's about it right now. I mean, and this, and I got some other things in the fire that's working, and so when you got other things in the fire, you're trying to put feelers out there, and then it makes you busy.
Yes, I feel you with the feelers out there. Well, you know what? I'm really excited again just to have a conversation with you. I don't think we've done that in a while. We are, into, I guess, the beginning of week three. Is it the
Yeah.
beginning of week three? Oh my gosh, of the Black Diva Collective. But it's just you and I today. So no guest speakers, no guests. We are a co host. We are going to talk a little bit about a very, very interesting topic. Actually, it's one that you just brought up, which is DEI fatigue. And
Mhm.
I thought it was a great idea. I think we both thought it was a great idea to talk about it because of some of the things you mentioned, but also because there are so many people out there that I either work with or I'm facilitating conversations for, and they are tired. They won't say it. Some of them won't say it, but they are tired of hearing about DEI. They're tired of DEI altogether. And then some of us are just tired of doing the work. So I'm glad we can engage in this conversation together. What are your thoughts on this?
I want to say that I want to say that people need to understand a couple things. Is that DEI is not just a one-time initiative or one-time strategy. We're continuously, as we think about diversity in the country, as we think about being inclusion, as we think about equity, there are continuous things that are coming up within our country that are making it less equitable for people. When we think about laws in Florida and Texas across the country for women's rights, for voting rights, those are all inequity issues or equity issues, right? That people are facing each and every day. Access to healthcare. So when people say they're tired of hearing the word DEI, well, you're actually living and existing in a climate and in a time where everything that is being pushed to you and everything that in the laws that are being voted on for you as an individual directly impact the equity of people or inequity of people. So it's not a one and done thing. It's not a thing that's just here for right now. It's a thing that we're going to continuously talk about for all eternity. Also, as new equity issues come to the forefront, right? And so we're going to continue
Absolutely.
to have this kind of conversation. So I think one part of me says yes. So I think I understand how people can say, why do we keep talking about these issues? And it's the same thing of why do we need to talk about equal rights for people of color, right? Because it's unyielding. It continues every day. There continues to be assaults against people of color, against women of color, against transgender women of color. And until those days stop, and until those numbers are not as high as other numbers, we're going to have to continue to do this work, right? And I also say yes, it gets very tiring at days. It gets, I mean, physically and mentally tiring. I think one of the things that Blair we're seeing. We talk about peace and pay on this show, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that we need our peace and our pay. And we're seeing right now that people are saying, forget the pay. I really need the peace. They're prioritizing peace over the pay. And this has shifted, right? And people are saying that if you're not going to do the work, if you're not going to really invest in your Black talent, if you're not going to give us the tools and resources to be successful, whether I'm a DEIBA, practitioner, or I am a professional or leader or worker, entrepreneur dealing with your business, then I don't need to be here working with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're seeing. And I don't know if it's good or bad, because then we're seeing a lot of that rich knowledge leave organizations. However, we're seeing people do wonderful things like yourself, entrepreneurs, and try to create their own spaces of peace and pay.
I think that's well said. What really stood out for me is the term, right? So people are tired of hearing the term DEI. We call it DEIBA here on our series here. You hear Jedi, you hear all kinds of catchy little trendy terms.
Mhm.
What really stood out for me in a conversation that I had with a potential mentor, fingers crossed, last week. She's also the owner of a DEI firm that's based in Louisville, Kentucky. It's been around for like 16 or 17 years. And she said, we've been doing this work for this long. And I was like, wow, I don't think I've heard of anyone doing this work for nearly 2 decades. And that's because that term has become much more familiar, the DEI. She was like, we're always reinventing the terminology to speak the language of corporations.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
really important. We're talking about their metrics. We're talking about what's really important to them. That way, we're consistently able to do this work. And they are not, quote unquote, getting tired of it because it continuously makes a business impact. And I thought that was really important. I thought the other thing that's really important is what you referred to is the time. A lot of folks are saying there's not enough time to do this work. Actually, studies show that the top barrier to progress is not enough time for dedicated DEI work. And what I always say is if DEI isn't in your DNA, it's not going to be a dedicated process, or it's not going to be real. So a lot of these organizations were built on nepotism. A lot of these organizations were built for people who don't look like you and I, right? So carving out time to do this work almost is silly to me because it has to be woven in all of the work that we do. So what do you think about carving out time for DEI work, or how do we make sure that it's not carving out a little bit of time, but it's in everything that we do?
Well, I mean, I think it's like any change behavior, right? It takes time because we've been working with, as you said, the corporations that were built 100 years ago, 60 years ago, 120 years ago. They had different values then. And some of those values
Mm,
did not include women and people of color in their growth strategy, right? And the people who are running those organizations many times, I mean, we look at our country, who is running our country? An 80-year-old man, right? And we've had two 80-year-old men, three 80-year-old white men who have run our older white men who have ran our country, and what is their belief system, right? And
mhm,
now many of them, Joe Biden, have changed over time, but what was their original belief system based on their surrounding, based on their area of thinking, right? And so right now, organizations, you're exactly right, there's not enough time and there's not enough resources to it. And the other thing about it is that organizations have to have, and we talked about this on the show last week about how do we get those middle managers involved, because what we're seeing
right,
is that the C-suite is saying, okay, we're involved in this and we're going to
mhm,
put enough resources as we can behind this. Financial resources are never still enough. Our FTEs are still not enough,
mhm.
but they're not saying to everyone within the organization that DI should be in everything you do. And when you're thinking about a plan, you need to have it with a DI mindset first, right?
Love it.
And also, you need to think about what are you doing to ensure that your professionals and your leaders in your organization are engaging in this work intentionally, authentically. So you do have to carve out the time right now until it becomes a learned behavior that every day I'm going to go have coffee with someone who doesn't look like me. So right
Right.
until we get to that mode of that, but it's gonna we're someone said this once before when I started in this work 17 years ago, culture work, is that we're turning the Titanic, and so it's just slowly turning it around. And I mean, I probably will say this every show that we're not going to see the work we're doing today come to fruition fully. It will be Gen Z who is knocking down doors and demanding that we talk about these things and we create spaces of belonging for them. Uh, More so than we've ever even thought about. We just thought we'd go to work, right? When we started working, we was like, we're just going to go to work and keep our heads down. Now, a new generation is saying, no, that's not the way we're working. We're working with you're going
Absolutely.
to create a space of belonging for me. And so that when we're thinking about traditionalists in the workplace and Gen Z is making an interesting mix of equity and conversations around diversity in the organizations.
You know what? I mean, I know that you say that it's Gen Z that's really going to, reap the rewards of, our hard work and what we do every day. But I think you said it. You said both, right? That it's actually happening now. There was an interview most recently. I love the Breakfast Club.
Yes.
And they have guest hosts coming on in the absence of Angela Yee, or she's left the show to start her own show. One of the guest hosts that they had on most recently is B. Scott. Are you familiar with B. Scott?
Oh, of course I am. B. Scott dropped the news, and I've been listening to Breakfast Club almost every day if I can on my ride to work. So yes,
I
of course.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I do. All because you was like you have to listen to these interviews. Some of them are better than others. I'll say that. But yes, I've been listening to them. But yes, I love B. Scott. B. Scott has been around in the LGBTQ community for many, many, many of years in sharing their news and updates. And so it was interesting. I'll let you finish, but it was very interesting that they brought B. Scott to the show in this space. Yeah, the evolution of the Breakfast Club, even there. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're right on the same path that I'm on, and it's about listening to people who identify as something else or someone else or whatever the case may be, but they
Mhm.
actually listen to Lena Waithe in that case. I remember I heard Charlemagne say that last week, and they were like, Lena Waithe was on our butt to make sure that B. Scott was in the building, and B. Scott identifies as trans non-binary. But what they said on the interview last week was, before all of this terminology came to play, I thought of myself as androgynous. And I love that because I mean, I used to say that all the time. I love androgynous looking folks, folks who just, they can put it on as, masculine or feminine or
Yeah.
whatever they be. But nonetheless, they thought that it was really important to listen to someone who was involved in the community and involved in the culture and to incorporate people like B. Scott in the culture and in the interviews and on mainstream, because now they're being featured on BET as of this week as well. So again, I know you're saying Gen Z, and that's really important. They're going to experience it too, but I think it's happening now because the work that we're doing now, the advocacy, the speaking out, and the conversations as well. So I just wanted to make sure I touched on that point.
No, I agree with you. And I think that is why, if you think about the fatigue that we're experiencing, we're pushing through the fatigue and the burnout because we are
Mhm.
seeing some of those wins, right? And we're seeing
Mhm.
more substantial wins than we've seen in the last, we think 10 years ago, some of the things that are happening now would have not happened, right? So we're seeing companies speak out. We're seeing companies be vocal. And we're seeing companies say, this is what we value. And if you don't value this, you need to leave this company, right? And so I think you're definitely right. We're seeing that. I will also hold on to the space that for us, people who've been working in the trenches and working in the space, sometimes we don't see it as fast as we would like to, right? And
True.
so
True.
it's one of those things where we're like, you be driving in the car, you're like, well, that person's driving fast, but to them, they're driving slow. So it's this one
Yes.
of those things, we're like, we'll be driving slow, but it's like, you driving kind of fast now. For me, can't keep up. So that's what it's looking like for us existing in the space sometimes.
I feel that. I feel that. Well, let's talk about a few of these behemoth companies. I just did a quick little Google. Most recently, Walmart, Netflix, and Wells Fargo have all been facing criticism and backlash, mainly from consumers and employees for their failed DEI. And so they had a breakdown of, what's going on in that space. But mostly what I saw, and calling out Walmart because I have on another Walmart outfit. I'm just saying, they have been doing a
You
good.
do. You are so good about. I'm telling you. Where's the Walmart? Can we get some cute men's clothes? I wonder if I could design a line for them of cute men's clothes. Walmart, y'all need me that.
They
Walmart,
do. They do.
I can design. So okay. Anyhow.
See, and maybe that's where some diversity comes in as well.
Mhm.
But we can only assume what's really going on in these organizations, honestly, because obviously we're not a part of those organizations. But some of the things that they said they were going to do was make sure that they give more credit to, Black creators. And there is, I don't know if you remember this, but there is a red velvet cheesecake ice cream. And I believe a Juneteenth ice cream as well that both Walmart created. You remember that? I think
Yeah,
that was just
mhm,
last year.
yeah.
I believe the red velvet cheesecake ice cream was from a company called Creamalicious. It's one of the
Oh. Hello. Okay. We have lost Blair, you all, and I think I'm still live with you all. So hopefully she will come back on here. That has never happened before, but I'm here with you. Okay. I was like, we lost you. That has never happened before. I was like, I don't know what to do. I was just gonna talk some whatever. I was gonna talk about whatever, but I don't know if they want to hear from me. But yes,
I'm sure they do. That's okay. I bet you were so flushed.
I was like, wait, why am I still on here? Okay, and she's gone. What is going on?
Unstable
Okay.
internet connection.
Okay.
Nonetheless, I think the last thing you all were hearing me talk about was the red velvet cheesecake ice cream that was created by Creamalicious, which is one of the only African American owned national ice cream brands. So when I think about companies like Walmart or a company like Netflix, who actually put out one of the first statements in response to the killing of George Floyd, and then went on to lay off several Black and BIPOC, if you will, employees for their organizations, it feels very performative. So a lot of folks are feeling very burnt out and tired of the word DEI because it's just like, is this even real? So what are your thoughts about, these, not only these larger companies, but companies as a whole, making these statements, especially from 2020, and not making much movement or much progress on some of the promises that they had established before?
Well, I mean, I think we have to think about this in a couple different ways. Is that after 2020, when the companies were making statements, we really had high expectations of them, and maybe unrealistic expectations of what they were going to do, right? Because one of those things of saying, hey, we know you've been treating me this way for 100 years. Now we want you to, and you treated us nicely for a year. We need that consistently. Well, it's not a learned behavior just yet. They revved up and got people into the organization that says, can you teach me how to treat people nicely? But then we did not nurture that behavior and that muscle over time. So we saw that corporations, that their belonging scores went down because leaders stopped checking in, leaders stopped caring, leaders stopped asking about what was happening in your life, right? And we've got to consistently do that muscle. So I think it's that. So I think we got to hold space for the fact that we had higher expectations than they were probably ever ready to do a long term, right, method. And then I also think that did companies, what they did was they hired these diversity and inclusion teams, but they did not hire experts in other areas who understood diversity and inclusion, right? And Walmart is a prime example of that. When they released Juneteenth ice cream, I was like, did they go to their business resource groups to ask them, was this a good idea? Is this what people asked for? If you want to think about what you're going to do to move the culture forward or move this conversation of equity and inclusion in your organization forward, you need to go to the people who are asking you to do that work more in-depthly and say, what is it that you want us to do? What can we do? And not just think about, here's some performative things we're going to do. And so, and I think and then that's when we can set those expectations, because also what I think you will see that one could say that Walmart has continued to expand their relationship with Black brands, especially with Patty LaBelle. Patty Pies. Patty has frozen food. She has all kinds of stuff at Walmart
Honey,
now.
them patty pies. Ooh, they snatch my soul every time. Please carry on.
Right. So she has expanded her brand there. And then if you look at Netflix, they have continued to bring on more Black creatives to present content. As you see recently, they brought on Monique, who they had a long back and forth with, right? So I think it's one of those things of we've got to also understand and take responsibility in our quick haste in 2020 to say you all need to do something, that they probably started doing things, but did they do what we really needed them to do? So I think it's just that, and I think we'll get to a better place over the next several years of them having a better understanding of what we needed them to do, right? But I think we also have to give them credit for doing something. It may have not been the thing we wanted them to do, but they have been doing something, right? Yeah.
Sure. True, true, true. I love that Noelle in the comments. She said most of these companies tend to be reactive and not proactive. And that's truly what
Yeah.
makes the work performative, especially if there's not some type of long-term plan. So I just want
Yeah.
to share a couple of things with you all before we get to our rapid fire. But as I did a little bit more research about why there's so much DEI fatigue out there, it's also because it's followed by insufficient resources and funding, which D'Angelo mentioned, inability to create a unified strategy. So sometimes we're just doing things here and there. I'm noticing that quite a bit when you and I are hired. So again, if y'all aren't familiar or didn't know, D'Angelo is also an independent consultant of the corporate strategist as well. And we may, have trainings here and there, but I can think of just a couple of clients that have us continuously embedded in their strategy. They want us to come back continuously. They want us to make sure that the consulting continues, as opposed to these motivational speaking talks to get people hyped and excited, or that one-time training. It's really important to have that unified strategy. Also, lack of data and lack of leadership support, which you mentioned. Going back to data just really quickly, I think, again, we have to be able to measure the success of whatever program, training, initiative, strategy that we put in place. What does good look like? We ask that about so many different things that we put money behind, but I don't think we're doing that enough with the DEI strategies or our DEIBA work. And I think the onus can definitely be on us too, as professionals, as we go into these spaces. We're letting them know that this should not be a checkbox. This is not just a one and done sort of thing. This is what really good looks like. I tend to leverage the Korn Ferry maturity model for organizations, for anyone that needs some type of like, okay, what is the continuum? D'Angelo, I know that you, and we've brought it into our organization, but the allyship continuum also for personal behavior and personal growth. So are there any other points of data that you care to share with the audience for them to think about as they continue to hopefully put fatigue to the side and start getting a little bit more re-energized?
Well, I just want to reiterate that before we can get to the data, we have to understand who's at the table, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when we think about these DEI strategies, we often are saying, well, the DEI team holds on to the DEI strategy and implements the DEI strategy, but everyone in the organization needs to always say, we're the instigators, but you all own the diversity strategy. Is talent acquisition at the table? Is benefits at the table when you're talking about? Is all the leadership? Do leaders know what it means to be an inclusive leader, every leader within the organization? And they're living up to those values. So it cannot be a strategy that is just in the DEI team. It has to be everyone in the organization. And so when everyone in the organization is responsible and owns that strategy, then you can have more metrics that matter. Organization I worked at, they start to tie their metrics to their myth. Right. And so leaders looked at their bonuses. And so if they did not meet a certain it was like 5 different metrics they had to meet, right? Some were around hiring diverse talent. Some was around leaders went through inclusive trainings and development, all of that type of work. But it was mentoring was in there too. But it really was then everyone in the organization, everyone who was at the table had responsibility to ensure that diversity strategy came to fruition. So really, before you can decide the metrics, you really need to decide who's at the table, and it should be everyone within the organization. So you're all invested.
I love that one. I'm sad that I didn't have some type of alliteration that we could have came up with. But y'all, there is this article out there as well, and maybe we should try to get this individual on our platform. But Farzana Naini, I'm sure you have a shout out. But I wanted to call out this particular article because it's called "Tired of Talking About Race and Diversity." Well, we are too. So I mean, I think that's a very catchy headline. But she goes on to give some pointers of how to ensure that you are implementing DEI in the work that you're doing. And just a couple of things that she called out was making sure that people understand why DEI even matters. And so raising an awareness in that place or in that case. For those who are saying that this is not a priority, make the case. And one of the third things I see here is folks that are saying, well, there's nothing that we can do, right? And then really just focusing on the importance of allyship. And I believe these are some of the topics that we're talking about this week. So I'm really excited. And I'll leave this on a very interesting note. One of the other things that I saw, Forbes said that white men are feeling left out of diversity initiatives. So I believe we'll be talking about that later on this week. So that maybe.
Yes, let's talk about it because I have some words on it. Let's talk about it. Blair, now I want to give a shout out today to everyone who is supporting and working in this space, and not that. I'm talking to the people who don't necessarily hold the title, and so I want to make sure we let people know that you can come on the show too. Okay, if you are helping Black professionals succeed or grow within organizations or as an entrepreneur, we want you on the show because you are part of this DEIBA community, whether you know it or not. But you're a champion for causes that help people have this equity and feel belonging. And so if you're doing that work off the side of your desk, or you're doing that work in a entrepreneurial spirit, such as Blair, or you're a speaker, whatever it may be, we want you to come on the show with us. So shout out to all those people that don't have the DEI title, but have the DEI title, okay?
I like that. I know we didn't have time for rapid fire questions, but I just have one rapid fire question for you.
Yes.
Red velvet cheesecake or German chocolate cake?
Oh, it's the German chocolate cake for me, because red velvet cheesecake is just chocolate cake, isn't it? Is it just with dye?
That's a whole other conversation.
Which
Absolutely
one for
not.
you?
Absolutely not. So it's German chocolate cake for me. I think that's mainly because my father, God rest his soul, he used to love German chocolate cake, and I just have carried that with my spirit and my energy. But it's really good too when it's done well. When it's done well.
Yeah, it's gotta be done well. Yeah, that's good.
Well, I appreciate everyone for joining us today. And Dee, we do this. I love that we are doing this work together. We're talking about this work, but we're also creating space for others to do the same. So every day, feel free to join us, you all, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your daily dose of D and B, daily dose of DEIBA with D and B. All right, y'all have a good day. Bye now.